Hey guys, it's good to be with you again. I think this is my third year in a row here, maybe fourth year. And at first, I just knew a few faces, or I knew you by reputation. But now I feel like I know most of you, and a lot of you I get to spend some of the summer with, and it's great. So I actually, while I haven't lived in this area for some time, I grew up here when I was your age, and this was my home battalion, which I know we got Ethan and Aiden and the Heckingers too, right? Anybody else from Big Valley Grace Battalion? All right. Yeah, Mercady? Is that Ricky? Mercady. All right, Ricky. What are our numbers again? What's our unit number? 3124. Okay. That's right. I have it on my shirt sleeve still. Yeah. And I was a junior counselor at camp, which I know a lot of you guys are now too. I started as an administrative assistant because actually they didn't trust me to be a full junior counselor for a couple years, actually, Dave. But eventually, yeah, it was okay. And my parents lived down the road in Salida. It's like a 15-minute drive, and my in-laws live in Turlock. And actually, you Larsons, they remember you from when you went to Monte Vista Chapel. A little bit, yeah. Some of you have been to my house, so you met my girls. The oldest is now 9, and she, I just got to warn you guys, when you visit, don't challenge my girls to a tree climbing contest because they may make you cry. They love to climb trees. They're quite good at it. And just a couple weeks ago, before it got real cold, I found one of I have 7-year-old twins also, all girls. And she was up in a tree. Her bum was like about at the level here, but it wasn't one of those trees where there's lots of branches, right? And so if you fall, you're like bounce, 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 thud. It was like you're going all the way down. And she was sitting there, not holding on to anything, reading a book about magic fairy princesses. Okay, that's where you are, sweetie. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is leadership lessons that I learned by experience that I wish somebody had told me. And maybe somebody did tell me and I just didn't listen, or it didn't click. And so there's 3 or 4 lessons points I want to make and kind of tell you the story of how I learned it, or one of the ways that I learned it. A lot of them are reinforced continuously. And so I think some of you, you're here at the leadership conference, but I'm not actually in leadership yet. And I want to challenge you that you probably are. Like God probably has a place where He has given you the responsibility of leadership. Maybe not by title, but by influence you have. Maybe it's just even over your friends or your siblings. So some of the places that I know He has called me to be a leader is first as a husband with my wife, and my kids as a father. Those are 2 very important ones. A lot of the jobs that I've had over the years, and so Dave mentioned one of them. So I used to be in computer security, where I did censored, and censored with my bare hands. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I would go around and try and improve the security at different government facilities in the U.S. and around the world. And so I got to go and try and catch hackers and then keep them out. And if they'd gotten in, try and get them out. And so I was telling actually my squad earlier that I got to spend 2 weeks on a naval command ship in the Mediterranean. And we were in port the whole time I was there. It was kind of a cool experience to be working on the computer systems that are actually on that boat. But it's always been like small teams. Like I'd have a team of 4 or 5, and I was like the team lead, and it wasn't until recently that I kind of became more the leader of leaders. Like sergeant, you were sergeant last year, right, Ethan? Yeah, and we got Ian over there, right? You're kind of now, you have a little bit of the job where you're the leader of other leaders. And that's kind of a little bit newer for me and a little bit harder. It doesn't come as naturally to me. On adventures, like if you were on Three Peak Adventure, right? I was one of your leaders there. I know we got Caleb and Logan here. Any other guys from Three Peaks? Yeah, Dave, sorry, I forgot you. Drake, yeah, okay, guys. Well, yeah, you guys just weren't very memorable. And then a battalion, right? That's another place we're given leadership. I wish I was more of a leader with my friends when I was in high school, but I tended to follow a little bit more and be influenced by them more than I did the influencing. So I think this is like the first point, the first lesson. What I've learned is that your role as a leader is to help your team succeed, your team members succeed at their mission. And a lot of times that role is unfortunately reversed. And the team leader thinks that it's his team's job to help him succeed. And it's a subtle difference, but it's very important. And so kind of the way I saw this was when I was working with the security teams, right? And we're over in the Mediterranean on the ship, or we're going to, we were in an underground bunker on the East Coast. That was pretty cool. Not in the White House itself, but there are a couple of buildings outside nearby that's like the whole purpose is to support what's going on in the White House. And most of the other, there was maybe a dozen teams that did what we did, and we get deployed to different areas, right? And some teams had more of one skill. Like some teams are really good at looking at the infrastructure equipment, the switches and the routers that are part of a computer network. And so if the job really was network focused, maybe you'd get team 7. And if a job had a lot of some of you will know what this means, some of you don't and won't care. If you had a lot of Unix servers, there was maybe a team that had a little more expertise there. My specialty was with Windows, which if you're in the security community, that's like, I'm like shunned because if you're cool, you don't like Windows. But that was just what my, okay, thanks, Jeremiah. Okay, we might get along. And of a lot of these other teams and the leaders, I noticed that the team lead would choose missions, and a lot of times you're looking for a needle in the haystack. You're not sure if the needles are even there, right? Because you're looking for, is there a hacker here? And you kind of have to be a detective. Okay, there's this quote from Sherlock Holmes, and Watson says, "Well, Sherlock, how did you know that that it was this guy?" And he says, "Well, it's because of the dog barking in the night." It's like, what? There wasn't a dog barking in the night. He goes, exactly. There should have been a dog barking, and there wasn't. And so I knew that it had to be like the dog's owner, right? The dog didn't bark because it was his owner, and so he knew that the guilty guy must be the dog's owner. So a lot of times you're looking for a needle in a haystack, and you don't know if it's actually there. And so you're like, how much time do I spend? How far do I go? What pieces of straw in the haystack do I look under? Which don't I? Because I don't have time. And I noticed a lot of the leaders, they made their decisions based on what would make them as the leader look good. And then they assigned their team members to jobs that would, again, make them look good. And I realized that my team would be a lot more effective if they were doing what they were enthusiastic about and what they thought would give the most likelihood of catching the bad guy, rather than doing things to make me look better. And so we chose missions when we could choose them, and we decided which straws to look under based on what they thought was most effective and what they could then, sometimes you like to get your team some diversity, so you give them a task that they'd like to grow into. And so we would assign those that they would look good, and so they would have a better resume. They'd have more opportunities in the future. And because of that, man, I could ask them to do anything. Like there's jobs I knew they didn't like. I could ask them to do it, and they'd do it in a heartbeat because they knew the way that I was planning how we work as a team was with their benefit in mind. I think of the Trinity trip, right? A lot of you guys were on the Trinity River this summer. Right? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sure, hands 5, 6, 7. Right? Okay, my bowman's there. Yeah, good bowman. So, like Dave, you were in charge of that trip. Like if we had made that trip to where it was about making Dave look cool in his canoe, that would have been, well, it would have been hard. But that was much different than if Dave made the trip about helping you guys to do better in your canoes and to have more fun in the canoe and to have fun and look good while being safe. So it's a real subtle difference in how Dave led that trip. But because he was focused on doing what he could to help you guys succeed, it was much different than if he had been trying to get you guys to help him have the most fun. So your role as a leader is to help your team succeed at the mission. So let's see, we're doing okay time-wise. So why don't you guys take like 5 minutes as at your table, and I want you to discuss where has God given you leadership responsibilities. Maybe because you're a corporal, or maybe you just realize that you have an opportunity to influence your buddies at school, sort of thing. So take 5 minutes to do that. Okay, guys, let's wrap this up just to keep us going. We're short on time, but I'd like to hear some of the areas that you have leadership responsibility. Let's start at the back. Somebody at the back table. Siblings, okay. So can you? I mean, I understand siblings, but what's your role there?
Well, for me, I'm the oldest.
Okay. And how many is that? How many others?
6 others.
6 others. Oh, wow. Okay, you got a big job. And is a big age difference, or?
They're all about 2 years apart.
Okay. So you got a lot of responsibility there. I know one of your brothers is here. Right there, hiding behind Bill. Yeah.
That's not hard.
Okay, Connor, your table back there.
We have some idea of just being an older brother, but also just in general life. When someone's asking you a question or asking you for advice on something, you obviously step into a position of leadership in guiding them in their decision.
Yeah, like an expert, subject matter expert, like that type of leadership there. Okay. This table here, Logan, your table. You don't have to be the one who talks, but serving through the church. Okay, and lead the group. This is like a small group Bible study, or is this like your youth group?
Facilities. So it's a team that they serve throughout the church.
Facilities. Okay. During the week, set up for Sunday morning. All the above. Okay, and is that just you do? Because Isaac, and then Jesse, right? Yeah. Okay. Do you guys do that together? Yeah. Somewhere else. And your older brother, Daniel. And you on the team too?
I'm on a different team.
Different team. Okay. So church teams. Great example. Okay. Right here up front. Okay, Seth.
I lead a Bible study with a group at Modesto Junior College.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. This is like a meet during the week?
Yeah, during the semester.
On campus, people's homes? Okay, on campus. Awesome. Okay, somebody else. Okay, squad 5. My squad.
So my school is actually divided into 4 houses. Each house has 4 leadership roles. I'm actually the chaplain.
Okay, so you have the chaplain?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
What are you, a Slytherin? It's August.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, that's a big responsibility. Okay. Let's see. Table here.
I would say just even in battalion, being a sergeant or corporal.
Okay, sergeant or corporal in battalion. Yeah. And how many of you guys are in a battalion? Okay. It looks like about third to half, somewhere in there. Okay. And that leaves, I think, just this table here.
My youth group, I lead a lot of things in my youth group. People rely on me a lot. And I read scripture, and at my church, I do a lot of things.
Okay.
Corporal, battalion, yeah.
Okay, cool. So that was neat because there was a lot of different answers given here. Okay, so let's kind of keep that in mind. We'll have one other opportunity to kind of talk as a table later. Lesson number 2 that I learned was to understand the interests of your team. And I mean interests in like what they're personally interested in, what makes them click, but also what they need and what they need to succeed. There's a verse in Matthew. It's in the Sermon on the Mount, and we call it the golden rule now. What is that verse? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And here's a mistake I made. I thought it was like, do unto others exactly what you would want done to yourself. Right? Which is probably, like, if you don't know anything else, maybe that's a good place to start. But here's a mistake I made. It was with my wife. And you guys can laugh at me about it. You're laughing already, yeah. Okay. And some of you have probably heard it. Like if you were at Three Peak Adventure, I think you've heard this story. Okay, so we lived in Maryland when it was this job where in this computer security, and my wife also worked for the government. In fact, we worked at the same organization, and it gets cold in Maryland. We were talking about the cold earlier today, weren't we, guys? Like, yeah, we were talking about the cold, right? And so it gets cold. Like we did a battalion snow trip, and it was like 5 degrees outside, which is what, like 22 degrees below. No, 27 degrees below zero? Yeah. Or not below zero, but below freezing. And so I'm Mr. Budget and spreadsheets. Like I love this stuff. Like I can tell you, if I've done my work for the month, I can tell you where every single cent has gone. And I get a little bit of pleasure out of, like there's some satisfaction over knowing that. You can laugh, Bill. And so, like, I'm always like, okay, we need to save, right? You're supposed to save. And so, when we were living in Maryland, and we were both working at the same organization, but we worked at different campuses, right? There's like different buildings, and there's a shuttle bus that goes between them. And so I'm like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to drive to the closest campus, which usually one of the two of us worked at, and then we're going to catch the free shuttle bus to take us to where we actually work, and we'll save like. Maybe almost half a gallon to a gallon of gas a day. And you add that up over, how many days are you at work? 200, 250 days a year. Like, okay, that's going to add up. That's some money. And I will say that I didn't have her do anything I wasn't doing myself. In fact, I kind of started it. So she was working at the closer building, right here, right close to the podium. And so we'd drive there, she would walk into her office, and then I would wait for the bus, and the bus would take me over to the far building, which was, 20 miles away or so, and I'd get out. And there was a little waiting, right, because you got to wait for the bus to arrive, and you got to walk through the big parking lot. And it was, winter and snowing and blowing the wind, and I was fine with this. But then things changed, and we reversed who was working at which building. And so we'd get out, I'd park the car, I'd get up, I'd go into my building, and then she'd wait outside. And I had this thing covered. I had a nice, it was a feminine, like pretty parka, with like a big hood that she could wear. No, I wear the masculine one. Yeah. And so hers had this little fake fur, ruffle around the head. And this is what we do. This is we're saving money by doing this plan. And there was a day when it was, I think the wind chill was negative 13, and I insisted that she stand outside and wait for the bus. And I didn't consider what there's a verse in Philippians about not only look to your own interests, but also to the interests of others. And I didn't realize that her interests were not at all to stand outside in negative 13 degree weather with the wind chill. She reminds me of it sometimes, but we've worked through it. Always at opportune times, right? She saves that one. So understand the interests of your team so that you can understand what they need, what they like, and you can serve them best in that way. So that was where I messed up. Third lesson, as you serve, God may be working more in your heart, or at least it may seem like He's working more in your heart than in the people that you're supposedly helping. Right? And it might get, like, the first time we had have you guys been to Father-Son Team Day? Okay. The last year's Father-Son Team Day in Southern California. I got to go back. So I have one of my issues, and I do a pretty good job of hiding it. Right? Dave said I was humble. I can fake humility pretty good, okay? But sometimes it's not always inside very humble. I like to take credit for successes and to blame other people when things fail. It's pretty good. It makes me feel a lot better, actually. So that's one of the struggles I have. And so when an event like a Father-Son Team Day goes well, I feel really good about myself. And when it doesn't go, and this is like things that are way out of my control. So I've been praying that we would have successful events, but somehow they would happen in a way that I couldn't take credit for what went right. That it would be obvious that God was at work and that it was all His doing. God actually answered that prayer, and I didn't realize He was answering it at first. So I spend lots of time preparing for an event like this, right? Like weeks ahead of time, start to think of all, like if this goes wrong, it's going to have this ripple effect, and I can counteract that by having this in place, and that in place, and this other one. And then if by off chance this happens, well, in my back pocket, I got this plan ready to go. And so Father Son Team Day rolled around, and the first problem was that I left a little late. I was a little behind. And so I leave a little late, and I'm going on Highway 2, which goes through like the San Gabriel Mountains, Los Angeles Mountains, if you guys ever lived down there. A real windy road, like big cliffs. And I had checked ahead of time, because there's rock slides and it closes, but everything said it was good. So I leave. I got the big trailer behind me, going to Father Son Team, got all the equipment back there. And let's see, what was the first problem was they have those signs above the freeway that like they can change the text, and it says, detour, accident, or amber alert, those sorts of things. And it said, Highway 2 closed at the pass. Like, no, I checked ahead of time. I bet the sign's wrong. So the sign is right next to ranger station. So I pull over, so I go and talk to the ranger. And I have to wait, like they're on their lunch break. And so they finally get back from their lunch. I'm thinking, but I'm planning ahead. Waiting for them to finish lunch it's going to cost me less time than continuing and making a mistake and having to turn around. So, right, you got your plans. So finally get back, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's closed, but it's actually closed on the other side of where you're trying to go, which is the direction that all the teams are coming up." So I'm like, okay. So I got to give them I got to send them an email before I leave cell reception that tells them this detour, like, hey, guys, the road's closed, here's a detour you're going to have to take. So I take care of that, because this guy knows what he's doing, right? And so then I start going, and I get a little further, and no, the road is actually closed. Like the ranger was wrong, the sign was right, the road's closed, I can't go further. So I turn around, go back, and I'm taking the alternate direction, and pretty soon, like the 4 cars on this road we come to a stop. And the fire, because there's a fire truck that's got the sirens on, it's blocking the way. So we end up waiting about 45 minutes for the fire guys come out and say, sorry, there's this grass fire here, and we're not going to let you through anytime soon. You just need to turn around and go back. So this was the second road closure. So turn around and go back. And it's getting pretty late now. I got set up to do. I got guys that are showing up who've never been to Father Son Team Day, and I got to set up before they arrive, so that I can help them out, get them to where they feel comfortable. And so continue on the way, and there's a traffic accident. And they have the entire road closed for about an hour. So I'm just sitting there. So I finally get to the site, and several of the teams have already arrived. I got none of the equipment out. And I've still got to do, there's errands I got to do. So I got to go get, I don't know what you guys do for lunch. We have Subway sandwiches. Somebody brings it in the morning, but I got to go put the order the night before, and it's about a 45-minute drive. So try and manage stuff, get stuff in this proper position, then drive down the hill to go order the Subway. There's another accident. The road's closed. So now, and I've left notes like, I'll be back at 7:30. Don't get worried, on the trailer, so that everybody knows when they arrive, and this guy's not here, that it's the right place. You get to Subway, and we had the first person who had a dietary concern of all of my events. This is the first one, and so it's they had, I think, a celiac disease, and so they can't have gluten. And so I called ahead, because that's what I like to do, and had arranged to make sure we had gluten-free bread for this guy. We'll get to Subway, and they made a mistake. They don't have it. So it was this series of events, and so by the time I finally get there, it's dark. All the guys they're actually starting to put a search party together to go look for me, because I think I'm the guy that was in the accident since I haven't come back in all this time. And so we had guys from my church who it was going to be there. It's hard to get a CSB group going to your own church when you're the rep. There's nobody believes you that it's an awesome thing. They think you're just saying that because you're the rep. So we're finally starting to get momentum. In fact, one of my guys is supposed to be here tonight until we had the road closures. So guys from my church came, and they turned around and they left because of the road closures. So by the end of the day, I'm like, this is a failure. I failed. This was the best father-son team day, like that we had. Like everybody thought it was like the one guy tried to drive around the road closure sign and got to where the rocks had fallen down, and like the CHP is there and starts to hassle him, and what are you doing, buddy? And he was like had to try and get out of the ticket in front of his son without, like, this was awesome. We had such a good, we talked about it the whole rest of the way. And I came to realize that God was, he was probably working in everybody else's hearts too, like from what they said, but from what I could tell, he had worked in me more than he had worked in any of them. And then my prideful self was like, well, I was supposed to help these guys out. I had to learn the hard way that God working in my heart was a really good use of my serving and being involved with the team. So don't discount that. And don't just because you don't see it, he's working in their lives as well. It's just you haven't realized it yet. Maybe they haven't realized yet, but he's doing it. Okay, so that brings me, let's see. We got 15 minutes left. That brings me to the last one, number 4. Be careful how you hold non-believers to God's commands. Right? Like there's a couple different ways of thinking of this. I've heard people say, right, God's commands are good. They're for our good, for our society's good, and we want people to follow them. Like we're better off if they're following His commands. But at the same time is that we, as people who love Christ and desire to follow Him and have the Holy Spirit in our heart, we have hard enough time keeping His commands at times. And so how can we expect them to do a better job than the Holy Spirit in us? And a lot of how you handle this point will be your effective or not effective for your witness to somebody. So what do I mean by be careful? When I lived in England for a while, so as we were traveling around doing these security jobs, we got to live overseas. 4 years in Germany, 3 years in England, and we had these 2 managers. In fact, they were my boss's boss, and then like a sister division boss's boss. So like they were pretty high, and they were both known for having a really foul mouth. And they're both known for making fun and deriding Christians and Jesus Christ. And you wouldn't think they'd be allowed to do that, right? Because if you're a government employee, there's like you're not allowed to disparage things like this. But I guess sometimes if you're disparaging the Christian faith, that's okay. She was a waterfowl farmer, like old MacDonald, the duck here and a duck there, everywhere. Duck, except it wasn't a duck. It wasn't a duck. And like you could hear all the way across the room. Like we live in. It's not very exciting in the government. You live in like cubicle land, so there's like this would be like 4 people working, and you'd each have your desks. And some areas you'd all have like your backs to each other, and some you'd have like the divider, and you'd all be facing each other but couldn't see each other. And so it was like this. I'm going to guess. 100 yards? Like it's like a football field long, and you just have these cubicles and different teams. And there was like 3 major teams in there. And I had more of a leadership by influence role there. I wasn't a formal team lead. And so like you could hear these 2 bosses like all the way halfway across the room, either when they were making fun of something and usually there was like a Christian who was being hypocritical, right? That was one of their favorite targets, or just one of our beliefs, or just just talking foul. And it wasn't just the 4-letter words; it was like bringing other people down. And so I had been thinking, at some point, I'm going to have a chance to say something here. Lord, help me to say the right thing. And He gave me like 9 months to prepare because He knew that I needed that. I have a hard time speaking up. I'm a little not as bold as I would like to be. And so this woman comes up and she's talking to the group in my cubicle, and there's like 4 of them there, right? And I'm one of these guys, and F this and F that, and I can't believe this. And she turns to me and she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Josh, I knew you're a Christian." And I said, "Well, you know, Kate, you're right. And as a Christian, I'm concerned with what we say. And so I'm much more concerned with what I say than what you are. So please, if you see me talking like that, please say something so that I catch myself." And she turned around. She says, "Say that again?" Or pretty much just, if other Christians acted like that, I don't know, I'd make fun of you guys like this. Right? So be careful how you hold non-believers to God's commands. So those are the 4 things that I've learned. I hope that as like iron sharpens iron, you guys can learn from them. But we got some time. I'm curious for you guys to share some of your leadership experiences where God has used the experience to teach you. A lot of you raised your hands when Dave asked that question. So let's take 5 minutes, share around the table, and then we'll close up with me kind of getting some highlights from the overall group. Okay, guys, let's get some wisdom and some experience from you all that you can share with me. I think we did this table last time.
Yes.
So, you guys start us out? You did a good job.
Discussion was our core leadership.
Poor, okay. So did we learn from the previous poor leadership?
I know your last point there about treating non-believers as believers, that's been a big life lesson. Or even expecting non-Christians to live like Christians and then like holding them to a standard, but not telling them they're being held to that standard and just not treating them in love.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. Another table.
I'd like to both thank you and encourage the young man. A very, very good speaker. You're able to very clearly elaborate things that are really important. I'm really grateful for these young men. Myself also, obviously, but these young men. But yeah, it was beautiful. It was wonderful.
Thank you, sir. Another, was that a hand up here?
Oh, I was just saying that, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, I think I've just been really blessed to be given the ability to serve in my church because I serve with the younger kids.
Okay.
So, you need to raise them up right, you need to raise them up like, with respect and love and all that stuff.
Okay. Is there any particular time you can think of how you've learned from working with the younger kids?
Yeah, I think it shows a lot of patience.
Oh, patience.
Like, they make me laugh all the time, so it's like, yeah.
Okay, thank you. How about this, Andrew?
So something that I've learned through like JCing and stuff. At first, through like base camp, it was hard, to talk about your faith and what God's worked in your life. But as I saw throughout like NorCal and SoCal, it got easier. And it was a lot more comfortable talking with these young men about your faith and your experiences.
So it becomes, your fear was unfounded in some ways, yeah. And as you realize that I'm not the only one who struggles with this or has a hard time with this, most of us do, and then it's easier to share with them. Nice. Okay. How about in the very back? Yeah. A really good junior counselor.
So it was awesome because I found out that he requested that I be a
so words of encouragement and investing in someone really help them grow, and then you even got to experience the benefit of it. Yeah. Awesome. Over here, okay. Aggressive, Ethan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Last year as a sergeant, I learned that delegation is really important.
Okay.
You don't have to do everything, and you shouldn't try to do everything.
So did you try to do everything and then?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I tried to do probably more than I should have.
Uh-huh.
I could have given more away, but, it's something I learned.
Good for you. That was if I'd had time for a fifth point, that was it. And I learned it the hard way. So good for you then.
A little bit hard.
Jeremiah, is that like a hand? Okay.
So,
Turn around. If you could turn around so they can hear you better.
so this is something I definitely still need to work on at home with my siblings, but we see in the Bible how leadership is not lording over people. And when I was a junior counselor, that's when I really got that experience where there were times when I needed to take charge, but it was also but the majority of the time was to focus on connecting with the campers, to being a friend and being a friend to them, and also counseling them when necessary.
Dave.
Yeah. So I get to work with a lot of guys like you, in fact, a lot of you guys, and I typically will look at you and go, man, there's so much potential. So I see where you can be, and I get really excited. And what I learned was that my standard was off. Like, it was too early, it was not right. And so what would happen is there'd be failures, and I would get disappointed. And apparently, my pastor told me, Dave, people can tell what you're thinking just by looking at things. It's true. And so I began to get this reputation. It was called the disappointed Dave fix. And we laughed for a while. There was a T-shirt that was made by Dwayne's wife. We had a summer that for me was the hardest summer that we've had, because there were some issues that took place, and it wasn't going to end the world or anything, but for me it's like, man, I can't believe like these things happen, and it was just really, really hard. And Bob, who was the guy who discipled me, one of the guys, he's still an influence in my life, and he said, Dave, it takes years. And I realized in that moment that I just was not being patient, and that I needed to, that I didn't want on my epitaph, on my tombstone, to be the disciplined Dave. And so I'm still working on it, just trusting God, relaxing a little bit, being patient, and being an encourager more than letting the disappointment, like just not being disappointed. And I think it's benefited the guys who I have an opportunity to lead.
We have time probably for one more. This table hasn't. There's a. Okay, Bill. Thank you.
So one of the things that I've learned, partly as a dad and partly as being a leader, especially as a boss, more is caught than taught. Any position you're in, people are watching. They're watching to see how you act. They're watching to see how you respond. And even if you're not in a position of leadership, you're still being watched. Well, if he can do it, then I can do it. Or if he's going to act that way, that must mean it's okay to. Or they're going to excuse it. Well, he does that, I can do this. And it's not a fair standard, because nobody's perfect. But at the same time, it should be a very strong check to us to say, hey, we as men are going to have people look up to us, whether it's a sister, whether it's a wife, whether it's kids, somebody at some point, even our peers. Iron sharpens iron, was mentioned earlier. We need to be living our lives as an example to our brothers and sisters around us as a leader. That's where God has placed us.
Let me finish up by reading a verse that we actually read during Bible X that is actually very similar to what you just said, Bill. 1 Peter 2, verse 12. And this is from the New Living. Be careful to live properly among your unbelieving neighbors. Then, even if they accuse you of doing wrong, they will see your honorable behavior, and they will give honor to God when he judges the world. Okay? Ian, why don't we pray? Okay, for dinner, just to close the thing up, both?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay. Okay. Let's pray, guys. Lord, I want to thank you again for bringing us here and seeing these guys. That some of them it's been since the summer, some of them it's been a little more recent. My new friend Drake back there, it's good to see him specifically again. Help us to sharpen each other here as we go about through the words when we are when we're in a Bible X and we're trying to specifically dig into your word and to have you speak to us, but also in the words we use with each other that we as we're out on the athletics field, as we're at free time, as we're sitting around the dinner table, so that we can go out and we can leave here and continue to sharpen others, and we can continue to be sharpened. Thank you for this food. It smells good already. Help it to give us nourishment for the rest of what you have for us here. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.